Hi, this is Synaptical, episode 3. It is April 29th, 2015, and I'm podcasting out of awesome Franklin, Tennessee. I'm your host, Travis Hill, and I'm a psychotherapist with an interest in technology. This is a podcast about the crossover of psychology and technology. How does technology fit into your personal life, your work life, your relationships? How does it affect your brain and your personality? We're going to talk about it. I wanted to start out with a little bit of housekeeping from last time, just to kind of give you all an idea of what's going on in the background for this show. I'm trying to settle on a place on the web to place all of these podcasts, whether I put them on a website that's going to be separate just for the podcasts, or whether I'm going to put them on my current private practice page that's got more information about me. Not really sure. Haven't quite decided on it yet, so there's no real repository for these things. They're just kind of getting posted out there. But for now, if you want to follow the podcast, you can. We are officially on iTunes. It only took about 6 days. They tell you it takes anywhere from 24 hours to 14 days. And on day 5, I was getting a little bit frustrated. But we are officially on iTunes, so you can go to your favorite podcast app on iOS, and you can do a search for Synaptical, and we will pop up so you can subscribe to the feed that way. We're going to continue to have this posted on YouTube as well. So if you're a YouTuber, you can get on YouTube and search for Synaptical, and you'll find the video of this podcast is on there as well. And if you are not on iOS, or you're not checking out YouTube, if you're using Android or a Windows Phone or something like that, you can find me on Twitter at Travis Hill LPC. The LPC stands for Licensed Professional Counselor, in case you were wondering. And if you follow me there, I will be happy to send you the link to the RSS feed, or you can follow my feed and you can go find the RSS feed. It's already been posted there several times before. So go check it out there. But finally on iTunes, about time. Today, I wanted to talk about Facebook. And this is a topic that I may tread lightly on, or I may just kind of throw myself right over and get into really talking about some of the things that I want to talk about with this. And Facebook in particular, I'm going to pick on Facebook in this episode, mostly because, well, you can have some of the problems we're going to talk about on any social network, but mostly Facebook, because they're the 800-pound gorilla in the room. So I'm going to go ahead and pick on them and use them as the example. But Facebook, because they're so commonly used, it's also the one that I hear about most in my private practice when people are coming in talking about Facebook issues that they have. And there are issues. On a personal note, just to let you know, I have used Facebook before. I'm very familiar with it, but I have not actively used Facebook for, I think it's going on about 3 years now, maybe 4 years. But I'm not actively on there. And the reason I'm not actively on there is, as a professional counselor, I'm very interested in people's privacy. And Facebook has shown itself over time to take advantage of people's privacy and not give people the opportunity to lock down their accounts, or they change a setting and they don't tell anybody out about it, or they give things that are you have to opt out and you're automatically opted in to whatever Facebook is offering. And I just have real problems with this. As they say, if you're not the customer, you're the product. And I think that's what's happening with Facebook. Now, having said all that, that's not to say that everything is wrong with Facebook. There are a lot of advantages that it offers. The ability to keep in touch with loved ones. There was the situation recently where Nepal had the earthquake, and Facebook had it set up so that you could track where your loved ones were if they had been in Nepal at the time. And so that's a great big advantage. And so I don't want to pretend like Facebook is terrible. I think my solution to it ultimately is you have to make the best decisions for yourself. I have made my decisions so far. Doesn't mean my decisions won't change. And everything in moderation, right? So if you're going to use Facebook, use it moderately. We're going to return to that at the end. In my practice, I see Facebook being used the wrong way quite often. And there's three ways that I see it. And when I went searching for other ways that people incorrectly use Facebook, I came up with some other ways. But let me just hit on the ones that I see as the most common when they come through my door. The first one is affairs. And Facebook being used to keep track of people who are from your past, from your history. But in this case, in particular, it's either people who you have had a relationship, a romantic relationship with before, or it's someone that you're meeting for the first time, a connection somewhere. Maybe the two of you have a common friend and that you share. And so meeting new people that way, and it makes the possibility of having an affair, or at least beginning an affair online, that much easier. And with this, I see people who have essentially kicked their spouses or their significant others off of their Facebook page, or they haven't friended them, or mm, those are the most common ways, I think. But basically, they have it locked down in private so that their significant other can't keep track of it in any way. Um, that's one way that I see Facebook being misused. Another way is um, I see people making assumptions that others in their world are better off than they are based on their Facebook posts. And this is a common cognitive irrationality, making that kind of an assumption. And the reason is that uh, what I see is people posting basically the best 5 to 10% of their day. Um, and that's the only thing that they'll post. People don't typically post about things that have been negative in their day. They're not posting about how their boss is yelling at them, or their bad relationship with their spouse, or um, just general negative things that you have to do. ran late to work today. Had to deal with tons of traffic. Um, Forgot to pick up the dry cleaning. These things, nobody's posting those things. Typically, people are posting wonderful meals that they've had, or interesting places that they've gone to visit, or amazing and incredible ways that their kids are highly intelligent and talented and skilled. Um, Maybe new toys that they've just gotten for themselves. This is what people are posting, right? And so what happens is you get on Facebook, and you're basically you're reading or learning about your world, that is the best maybe 5 to 10% that everybody has to offer. And this clouds your judgment and your ability to be able to compare yourself to other people. And it's an unreasonable comparison, and it's one that moderation tends to hammer out. It allows you to take a step back and take a realistic view of your friends' lives, and for you to take a realistic view at what your life is about. And so that cross comparison of your life compared to the best that other people are showing becomes a false comparison, and learning to let that go. The other thing that we see is people just spending way too much time on Facebook. Now, that's exactly what Facebook wants you to do, right? They want you to play games on Facebook, and they want you to read news stories on Facebook, and they want you to video and message with your friends on Facebook. And so the more you're on Facebook, the more you're engaged. That's the word they use, right? The more you're engaged with Facebook, then the more you're going to be on it, the more they can advertise to you, etc. Um, and the problem with that, of course, is like anything else, it starts to border addiction if you're on it too much. And I'm not going to make the argument of whether Facebook or internet can be an addiction or not. I think the argument can be made that it's not, but I see the arguments for it. But the idea of spending too much time, and we're back on the answer, it's moderation. If you're starting to give up aspects of your life, you're starting to not participate in hobbies or personal interests, or you're ignoring projects at work or things like that. then you're using Facebook too much. Um, Now, just to give Facebook a bit of a positive spin on this, I will say that one of the things that they have shown in research to work is people taking their Facebook break while they're at work. It is actually necessary, but it's not about Facebook. It's about taking the break. So, in years before, people would take smoke breaks, but smoking's not allowed at work anymore. People would start taking coffee breaks. They'd hang around a water cooler. Um, People now go out to their car, they listen to music sometimes, or they bring headphones to work. They listen to podcasts, right? Maybe you're listening to this at work right now. And so taking that, about 10 minutes for every hour that break. So for every 60 minutes of work, taking a 10-minute break actually is important. And a lot of people are using Facebook for that. And mostly it's just to see how awesome everybody else is, right? Because they're only getting the best posts. While they're sitting at work, bored, wishing that they were doing something else more exciting. Um, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over a couple of articles here today, and one is discussing the what we talked about earlier, that idea of cross comparison. In the 50s, there was a social psychologist named Festinger, and he came up with the theory of social comparison. And it was that individuals have this innate desire to see how they measure up with their peers um, on the dimensions that the person feels is important as a way to evaluate how they're doing. If driving a fancy car is important to me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare my car to my friends and others around me in order to determine if my car is actually a fancy car, rather than determining whether this car is just regularly enough for me. Um, and so they did some studies on taking a look at this issue when it comes to Facebook. And big surprise, what they found is that people do tend to present themselves in the most positive light when on Facebook. That is, they filter out bad aspects of their lives and they accentuate the good. So if we're comparing ourselves to others, quote, highlight reels, we may feel our lives are more mundane or less glamorous compared to other people. But, and back to moderation, if we bear in mind that we're comparing ourselves to a carefully crafted and positively distorted version of their lives, we can take a different view. And so that study was recently put out there at the end of last week. I think April 24th was when it came out. And so this was from the University of Houston and Palo Alto. And so I'm going to go to this next article. This is talking about 7 ways in which Facebook is bad for your mental health. I found this on Psychology Today, and I'm just going to hit the highlights. But these were a couple of more than maybe what I've seen in my practice. But again, I think it's something to keep in mind when you're using Facebook. Number 1, it can make you feel like your life isn't as cool as everyone else's. Number 2, it can lead you to envy your friends' successes, so leading to envy. Number 3, it can lead to a sense of false consensus, meaning that if you have a personal belief about the world, then getting consensus from your friends indicates that your bias may be correct, when in case the only reason that it shows your bias is correct is because you keep people who are like you in your world. It can keep you in touch with people you'd really rather forget. Although I think that that is more of a personal issue, in that you should be able to filter those people out very well. You can go into your own Facebook feed and you can determine how much you're sharing with them, and who you get to share with, and whether that person still needs to be around or not. And I think when it says it can keep you in touch with people you'd really rather forget, maybe it's people you should forget, meaning either past romantic relationships or something like this that don't need to influence your current one. Number 5, it can make you jealous of your current partner, meaning that your partner may be posting the best version of themselves, and it may be that your partner has more friends on their Facebook page than you do, or it means that they're friending a lot of exes on their Facebook page or something, and so this starts to create trust and boundary issues. I do see this one occasionally. Number 6, it can reveal information you might not want to share with potential employers. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, I think that goes back to that self-filtering that people do, the highlight reel of Facebook. I think that's what it goes back to. People can't speak negatively about their boss, or they can't talk about the activities that they did that might influence their job. And so I think that's a good one. I like that. Number 7, it can be addictive. In the DSM-5, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, they do have internet addiction in there now, although I don't think it's considered an official diagnosis. I think it's kind of in there as something to be studied. I'm not fully bought into internet addiction as a problem. I think that internet use can be a problem. I think that Facebook use can be a problem, but an addiction, that's a tough sell for me. Um, Anyway, I thought talking about Facebook today would be pretty interesting because Facebook is always one of those that I'm encountering here in my private practice, but as well as my personal life. I think it's hundreds of millions of people just in America are using Facebook at this point, and they're active users. So it's kind of hard to step away from it. But the lessons that I think that can come out of this are this: number one, anything that you use online, social media, but Facebook in particular, we're talking about. Everything in moderation. If you're going to use it moderately. And I think that if you can do that, then you're going to find a lot of solutions to the Facebook issues. If you want to learn more about the topics that I talk about in the podcast, or you have questions or feedback for me, you can head over to Twitter. I am at Travis Hill LPC. I will talk to you next time. Now go unplug for a minute.